President Trump under pressure to deal with the disappearance of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, suspected of being murdered by the under the orders of the Saudi Arabian government. Want to bring in Larry Kudlow, director of the White House National Economic Council this morning. Larry, thank you for joining us again this morning. We just heard the president say there that Saudi Arabia should face some severe punishment if it's shown that they are indeed behind the disappearance of Jamal Khashoggi, ruling out, though, taking away the arms sales to Saudi Arabia. So what sanctions are being considered?
George, I don't want to get too deep in it. I don't want to get ahead of the president on this. All I would say is, with respect to the Khashoggi story, which is a tragedy for Khashoggi, among other people, believe what the president says when he says we will take very tough action if the allegations of Saudi interference prove to be the case. There's a litany of possibilities here. I don't want to go into those details.
Well,
Beg your pardon?
Is there any other explanation for the disappearance, really?
Look, I'm not an expert on these things. I don't know if anybody knows at this point. The president has called for a swift and transparent investigation. I think he's talking about this week in particular, so we will see what that brings.
Your colleague, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, is under some pressure as well. He's planning to attend this investor conference in Saudi Arabia. Many leading CEOs are pulling out of it to protest this action. Is it appropriate for him to be going to that investor conference?
Well, by the way, it's actually a conference about terrorist financing and how to stop it. So it's a very important subject. Regarding Secretary Mnuchin, spoke to him last evening. At the moment, he is intending to go because of the importance of the issue of ending terrorist financing. But again, along with the president and the general investigation, Mr. Mnuchin will make up his mind as the week progresses and as new information surfaces.
We had a rocky week in the stock market, as you know, on the heels of rising interest rates. That caused the president on Thursday to talk about the Fed. He didn't seem too happy about the Fed.
The problem that I have is with the Fed. The Fed is going wild. I mean, I don't know what their problem is, but they're raising interest rates, and it's ridiculous. The Fed is going loco, and there's no reason for them to do it, and I'm not happy about it.
The president said he's not happy about it. He also said the Fed is out of control. So what's he going to do about it?
Well, look, he's expressing his opinion, George. He's a very successful businessman and investor. He's raising an important topic. A lot of people on Wall Street and academia and elsewhere in the press are talking about interest rates, the speed of the increase, and whether it will impact the economy. It's a legitimate subject.
Do you believe the Fed is out of control?
I do want to add, however, quickly, look, I don't personally, and the president respects the independence of the Fed. Let me make that very clear. He said as much during these comments. He is not telling them or mandating them to change their strategy. He's not telling them to change their policy. He's just raising a very important issue, which, by the way, everybody else in the world is also raising. I do think, I want to say this, pretty much everybody believes that we want this economic boom, which virtually no one expected, we want this boom to continue. Everybody believes that. The Fed believes that. The president believes that. Investors, businessmen and women all believe that. We're running for the same objective. There are issues and discussions within that. But President, again, let me say this, has never interfered with Fed independence, and he has said so.
What is the biggest threat, though, to that continued economic growth? A lot of people have been citing the president's focus on tariffs, particularly with the Chinese, as something that could stall this economic momentum right now.
Well, I think the trade issue, let me just add one point, though. To me, the biggest threat to this economic boom, which in my view is going to go on for several more years, is efforts by the Congress to overturn it. And I think that's an election year theme. We do not want to overturn the reduction in tax rates for individuals and small businesses and so forth. We do not want to overturn all the across-the-board deregulation, which has unlocked and released the animal spirits. The new Trump economy is about blue-collar workers. It's also about men and women who own their own small businesses. The president has ended the war against business success. My biggest concern is that political issues or congressional issues could overturn these important pro-growth measures. That, to me, is the biggest issue.
One of the things you predict, you talk about the pro-growth measures, including the tax cut. You predicted before the tax cut was passed that it was going to bring down the deficit. In fact, the deficit's been going up. Our debt is higher than ever.
Well, actually, you know, we just got the new numbers on the deficit for 2018. They came in over $100 billion below estimate, according to the Congressional Budget Office.
Except it's still climbing.
$100 billion. I believe, George, it was about 3.9% of GDP, which is a manageable number. Now, look, short run, there are all going to be some deficit issues. Medium term, and I think the medium term's coming on, faster economic growth, which will bring in more people working, more revenues, faster economic growth. That's going to really lower the budget deficit and its burden on the economy. I think that's absolutely the key point.
I want to talk about climate change. We saw that new report from the UN saying that if action isn't taken right now, you're going to have irreversible damage much, much sooner in the next 20 years. And of course, it comes against the backdrop of that horrific hurricane we just saw, Hurricane Michael. You can't tie any single weather event to climate change, but there's little question among scientists that it's increasing the probability of more intense weather events. Warmer water leads to more intense weather. Is the president going to do anything about it?
Well, look, we're always studying these things. I mean, you had, I guess, Bill Nordhaus from Yale got a Nobel Prize on his own economic work with respect to climate change. I respect that. He's a really brilliant guy. The issue here, though, is magnitudes and timing. Personally, I think the UN study is way too difficult. I won't say it's a scare tactic, but I think they overestimate. These models have not been very successful in the last 20 years, and we have to be cognizant of the work that needs to be done. I'm not denying any climate change issues, George. I'm just saying, do we know precisely, and I mean worth modeling, things like how much of it is man-made, how much of it is solar, how much of it is oceanic, how much of it is rainforest, and other issues. I think we're still exploring all of that. I don't think we should panic. I don't think there's some, imminent catastrophe coming, but I think we should look at this in a level-headed and analytic way. You
know, the New York Times is reporting this morning that Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, White House aide, likely paid no income taxes from 2009 to 2016, despite real estate profits that have fueled a net worth of more than $300 million. And, of course, that comes on the heel of the other New York Times report that showed how the president's family, his father, shielded his estate from taxes, fueled President Trump's fortune, including, they say, through outright deception and possible fraud. So do Americans have a right to be concerned that President Trump and his family are gaming the system for their own benefit?
You know, the most recent Times story, George, about my colleague Jared Kushner, who, by the way, is a brilliant guy and has enormous integrity. That story itself said he didn't break any laws. I mean, he's a successful businessman. There's no law against that. I respect that. I think Americans respect success. I just don't think these stories have anything to them. I thought the President Trump story a couple of weeks ago was just full of holes and hot air and whatnot. Playing by the rules is a good thing, not a bad thing. Both gentlemen have done so. And as I said, in the Jared Kushner story out yesterday, the Times story itself said he's done nothing wrong at any time.
Larry Kudlow, thanks for your time this morning. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.